Yeah! Hey everybody, welcome back to Matt's Metal Show. I'm your host, Matt Lortz. Today we're going to talk about live albums. The first show we talked about some of the studio albums that I love, and I missed a bunch of them. A few quick mentions. Michael Schenker, MSG, or Assault Attack. Two of my great favorite albums of all time. Totally forgot. Journey Escape. And people aren't going to think that's metal. It's definitely hard rock, though, and one of the greatest albums ever made. So just keep that in mind. And like I said on the first show, let's not paint ourselves into a corner here and say, well, that's not very metal. It doesn't sound like Overkill. Okay. Anyways, but we're going to talk about live albums today. There's a lot of bands are doing live albums like every 2 minutes now. And that's cool, but some of the older bands out there that have been around a long time, some of the singers are getting like a little, and then some bands out there who've never really come out with a real, actual live album. Maybe I should put that on mute. Some bands that are out there that have never really come out with an actual true live album because some of their singers aren't really up to snuff when it comes to doing a whole live show. So, which is strange because, Ozzy's done like 4 live albums. And Ozzy's not a very good singer live. I mean, he's better now that he's not on drugs, but, if you watch the After Hour show with Randy Rhoads where he's like, you gotta go, wow. Or if you've heard as much live Ozzy bootlegs with Randy as I have, you'll definitely go, wow, Ozzy, not a very good vocalist live. Vince Neil, David Lee Roth, those are just, to name a few that have, and then, whatever. So let's talk about live albums. A lot of people don't like live albums. A lot of people think, what a waste of time. The cool thing about a live album, if it's done right, it's a snapshot of a certain show or a certain tour, and that's it's like a piece of time captured on digitally now, but back in the day it was on vinyl. And sometimes it was pretty cool to have a really cool double live album back in the day when you were a kid. So one of the first ones I want to talk about, a cool double live album when it was on vinyl. And look at this. Derek Riggs just kept outdoing himself on every Iron Maiden cover. Just phenomenal. What a great album cover. And what a great album. Live After Death, Iron Maiden, had some of the greatest Iron Maiden stuff. It was recorded on the Power Slave tour in 1984 or 85 or 84, 85, right? Tell me why I had to be a power slave. I don't want to die. And they had that phenomenal live show with the big giant, Egyptian eddies, and the big giant mummy came out of the wall, and it was just mind-blowing. This is the culmination of, they did 4 shows at the Long Beach Arena, in a row, or I think they took 1 day off between the 4. And this is kind of like that show. Plus, side 4... Or, if you bought the CD, the remastered CD, it had that extra disc and it had 4 or 5 extra songs on it. And that was from the European side of this tour, which the interesting thing was is they couldn't take that big giant live show with them to England because it wouldn't fit into some of the venues that they were playing. So they had kind of a stripped down stage when they went to Europe. But that extra little blurb they have, Die With Your Boots On and Wrathchild and some great live songs. But anyways, Live After Death, I know Iron Maiden's done a bunch of live albums since then, a Real Live one, Real Dead one, and Iron Maiden Rio and all that. But this is the definitive one. This is the one where Bruce's voice was still pretty good. Uh, it wasn't amazing. It wasn't like watching Number of the Beast or even the Peace of Mind tour. But his voice was still up there, and then it started to get kind of strained after a while because that happens when you get older. But to listen to Bruce talk to the crowd, tell his little humorous stories, about the Queen smoking weed because she had period pains, and Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, or this is what not to do if a bird shits on you. And then just his interaction with the crowd, that was always a fun part of watching Iron Maiden because Bruce is pretty funny. But this is a great live album. So check it out if you haven't. And if you have, well, then right? What? How did this get here on a metal show? I don't know. It's just like Frampton Comes Alive. Like on Wayne's World, they're like, Frampton Comes Alive? They handed that out with samples of Tide in the 70s, right? They did. One of the best-selling live albums of all time is Frampton Comes Alive. Peter Frampton, he played hard rock. He played great guitar. This is a great live album, This is one of the best. He does, of course, Baby, I Love Your Way Every Day. And Jumpin' Jack Flash, and there's, Doobie Wah, and, there's a bunch of cool songs on here. He's a great guitar player. Years later, they came out with Frampton Comes Alive 2 to try and recapture that magic, and I think his mom bought it, and that was it. Like his mom and like maybe somebody who knew him, but it didn't go over as well as the first one, obviously. It sold like 60,000 copies in the year it came out. I think it was like 1976, and it's one of the great live albums. Is it hard rock? It's hard, It's not thrash metal, but it's definitely an important album. And there's a lot of important albums that were live albums that weren't considered rock, or heavy metal, but growing up as a kid, my dad played Elvis Aloha from Hawaii like about 200 million times. He played it so many times that I thought the song Something was an Elvis song instead of a Beatles song. He played it so many times that when I actually later on in life went and saw 2001, the movie, that they start playing the intro, and I thought, why are they playing the intro to Elvis? Because I thought that was an Elvis song, but it turns out it's actually from 2001. So that's funny. Rattle and Hum from U2. That's a great live album. I love it where Bono comes out and he goes, "This song wasn't in a hotel room. It's a song about a man living in a shanty town outside of Johannesburg. A man who's sick of looking down the barrel of white South Africa. A man that is ready to take up arms against his oppressor." And, and then he goes on and on. He's "Am I bugging you? I don't mean to bug you. Edge, play the blues." As the song Charles Manson stole from the Beatles, we're stealing it back, Rattle and Hum, it's a great live album. It had some great songs on there. Neil Diamond, man. Come on, really? Hot August Nights? Forget about it. Dude. That's my little segue into the Scorpions. Worldwide Live! On my previous show, I called this Live at First Sting. I have no idea why. I don't even know what that means. Worldwide Live. The Scorpions had two really important live albums. They had Tokyo Tapes, which was from 1978, and it had Uli John Roth on it, and it was all the early Scorpion stuff. He's a Woman, She's a Man, and In Trance, and Virgin Killers, and that kind of stuff. And then this is the live album 1984 with Matthias on guitar along with Rudy. And this is the album where the Scorpions were popular. This is the one where it had all the great songs from the Mercury albums, which was, from Love Drive on into Love at First Sting. And it has all the great songs. It has Holiday. Let me take you far away. You're like a holiday. I always like to listen to Klaus because he always like, he has that thick German accent. So he'd be like, "Are you ready to rock Santiago?" And it was like listening to like Loudness back in the '80s. We went and saw Loudness play at the California Theater, and like Minoru Nihara, the singer, I remember his speech to this day. He was like, when he introduced the band, he's like, "Oh, the shit on bass, fuck you, I can't talk and sing on guitar, I am fucking Minoru Nihara, thank you," and Minataka Gucci on the drums. It's just fun to listen to somebody from another country when they're talking, they're interacting with a country that doesn't speak their mother tongue, which in the case of the Scorpions, they were German, of course. But those are two. If you take Tokyo Tapes and you take Worldwide Live and you smash them together, not only do you get Yuli and you get Matthias, and of course the constant of Rudy Schenker, but you get a good overall picture of their entire discography up to the point, where they... I'm not going to say where they were good, but, Love at First Sting was probably like a cutoff point. I'm just saying. I'm also going to have some misses on here, and let's go over the first miss. The first miss, I don't know if you could see that, but this is Queensryche Live Evolution. It's a great concept, that Queensryche Live Evolution, because the fact that there's great songs on there. Phenomenal songs. They go all the way from the EP all the way to Q2K. But the problem with Live Evolution is, one, Chris DeGarmo is no longer in the band. And two, Jeff Tate's voice is just, it's not phenomenal anymore. It's just alright. So, if this album was done 10 years earlier, it would have been great. But it kind of comes over a little smooth just because his pipes are not there anymore, and then just not having Chris in the band, that sucks. But whatever. But one Queensryche album I'll cover later on, because we do have Live Crime, and this is with DeGarmo, and it's basically they do Operation Mindcrime Live, and that's incredible. But it's Operation Mindcrime Live. You can just buy the album, They did throw on like Roads to Madness and I think like Lady Wore Black or something on it, just as a little bonus. Yeah, Lady Wore Black. But I'll cover another Queensryche album just in a little bit. Yeah, all right, let's get into Rush real quick. This is the first CD I ever bought. The second CD I ever bought was Moving Pictures, but the first CD I ever bought was All the World's a Stage. And basically because, I was like 17 and I didn't have a lot of money, so, why not get the most Rush for your dollar? I think somebody actually bought me Moving Pictures. This is an amazing CD, and because of the fact that it's 1976, it's on the 2112 tour, they're in Toronto, their hometown, and the boys from Rush come back and they rock the house. And it's heavy, it's got all, it's got By-Tor, and it's got Lakeside Park and Bastille Day and What You're Doing, and In the Mood, Working Man. Working Man is so heavy on this album that, like, your teeth will crack when you listen to it. It's like... and and it also has like the complete side one of like 2112. So it's great, man. This is 1976. Now it's heavier Rush. It covers the first four albums because we know Rush did live albums. They would do 4 albums, a live album, 4 albums, a live album, and they followed that recipe for a long time. And now Rush does a live album after every show. So there's 275 live Rush albums now. Okay. Okay. I mean, I've seen the last 5 tours. They were all incredible, and so if you want, that captured moment of that tour to take with you, cool. All right. But I'll just tell you, This is an amazing album. Then we move on to everybody's favorite, Exit Stage Left. Not only because this is a really cool album cover. I mean, if you flip it open, you know, it's got all this cool stuff on it. It's got the chick from Permanent Waves. It's got the dude from, you know, Movie Pictures. Of course, this guy's in Movie Pictures, and he's moving the picture of Caress of Steel. You got the naked dude from Hemispheres. You got the puppet from Farewell to Kings. And, of course, you got the owl flying from Fly By Night. Whoa, it's amazing. Okay. Here's the problem. It's almost on my miss list. And I know people are going to freak out. They're going to be like, what? You're going to put Exit Stage 11 on your miss list of live albums? How can you possibly do that? Because aside from the fact that it has an incredible set list, because this was recorded in 1980 on the Moving Pictures tour, you know, which is great. But it's not really a live album. I mean, it's chopped up. You could definitely tell it's chopped up. The audience is very muted. Getty says like 3 things on this whole album. It just doesn't feel like a live album. It feels almost like a studio greatest hits album. And it, you know, but the song listing keeps it on the hits list. I would love for them to just remaster it and say, oh, hey, here's an actual just concert from 1980. Complete with the audience screaming, because it's a hell of a show. You know, I mean, it's got Xanadu and the Trees and Free Will, Spirit of Radio, Tom Sawyer, YYZ. I'm doing this all from memory here. Red Barchetta. It's got Bruins Bane, which is like a little acoustic blurb into the Trees. It has Jacob's Ladder on it, which is cool. I don't know if you're a big Jacob's Ladder fan. I mean, Jacob's Ladder is a cool song, but is it your favorite Rush song? I don't think so. If it is, you have to ask yourself some serious hard questions. It has a passage to Bangkok, which is become a running joke over the years that, you know, like I remember on the 30th anniversary tour, they had Jerry Stiller up there on the little blurb that they do before the show, and he was like, they're not going to play Bangkok. And then, like, at the end of the show, he's like, see, I told you they didn't play Bangkok. Weaving smoke in Lebanon, we burn the midnight oil, the fragrance of Afghanistan. Okay. I'm just saying. I mean, it's Bangkok. It's great. Beneath, Between, Behind. You know, they pulled out some oldies but goodies. The cool thing about Exit Stage Left is that it's Rush, and that's about the coolest thing about it. It's amazing to listen to, but like I said, it just doesn't sound like a live album. This is my final Rush album that I will talk about. It is called Rush Different Stages Live. And the cool thing about, at this point on the Test for Echo tour, which it was recorded, is where Rush started, you know, doing an evening with Rush, which was basically, they didn't have an opening act. You know, they stopped having an opening act. Rush was famous for having the strangest opening acts anyways. You know, I think on the, you know, many of the tours, they had people that you were like, who is that? I remember I saw Tommy Shaw open for them. I saw Steve Morris open for him. FM. You know, they had a lot of interesting bands opening for them. But then they decided, you know what? We don't really need an opening band because we have enough music to play for 4 hours. So we'll go ahead and play ourselves, and then we'll take a break in the middle, and then we'll do like a 2-part show every night. So that's what they started doing, and it's phenomenal. You definitely get your money's worth when you go to a Rush concert because they play like a bunch of stuff. This is great. This has all the later stuff from the, you know, Presto and Roll the Bones and Counterparts and Test for Echo. Plus it has a lot of the older stuff, you know, like the Trees and, you know, of course, Tom Sawyer and Spirit of Radio and that kind of stuff. They actually do 2112 too, the actual first side 2112 too, so that's pretty cool. But the cool thing about it also is it came with a bonus disc, so it's actually 3 full CDs And this is from a Farewell to Kings tour, and I don't know if you could see this up close, but I'm covering it with my finger. That's Getty, and he's scalping tickets outside the Hammersmith Odeon. This show was recorded in 1978 at the Hammersmith Odeon. It's basically just like kind of the next tour after All the World's a Stage, but you know they add on the a Farewell to Kings songs. So you get a Farewell to Kings, and you get Cygnus X1. They do Cygnus X1. Cygnus. I am no longer able to talk, so I'm going to have to talk in a British accent until I figure out why my tongue doesn't work. They actually do Cygnus X1. See, I can say it in a British accent, but I can't say it in an English accent, so I'm not sure what that is, even though that is an English accent, and I don't say it in an American accent. I'm not really sure why, but this is what happens. Anyways, they play Cygnus X1, and they also do Cinderella Man. You know, because I know a lot of you are sitting around waiting for them to do Cinderella Man live, which is a cool song. You know, don't knock Cinderella Man. I'm being serious. No, I'm not really. Another miss. I'm gonna go over two misses real quick. I don't have the album cover, so you know, just picture it in your mind. Okay. One is Motley Crue Live Entertainment or Death. Came out in 1999. I've seen Motley Crue 6 times live. Saw them on their farewell tour a couple months ago, and apparently they're coming back, like I said before. It's whatever. Drag that one out. Now, I remember seeing Vince Neil like in '83, and he couldn't sing live, and he certainly can't sing live now. So they never really came out with a live album, and this live album that they did come out with, it's a chopped up version of songs from like a span from 1982 to 1999, you know. And so you're just saying to yourself, well, that's 17 years. You couldn't have come with one single recording and mastered it and maybe touched Vince's vocals up a little bit, but apparently not. So they had to go through and chop one song from every tour they've ever done, and they finally came up with a whole show, apparently. But you know, it's all their hits, but what's the point? You know, the whole point of a live album is to have that, hey, this is one or maybe 2 shows and they did the best of, but not 15 different shows, you know. It's like, what's the point of that? I mean, might as well just listen to the album. So I'm going to say that's a miss. And the other one, which is exactly the same as that, is GNR Live Era 87 to 93. It's the same thing. Apparently they couldn't get a whole show because Axl would quit or throw his mic into the friggin' stands or beat up a fan or punch Slash in the face, and they'd get into a brawl on stage. I saw them in '91 with Metallica and Body Count at the Jack Murphy Stadium, and they put on a great show. It was very Hollywood. By that time, you know, it was the Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 tour, so it was like, you know, they thought they were above everyone, and they had, you know, Axl came out of the stage on the piano, and he played the theme from The Godfather, and they had a horn section, and singing girls, and it wasn't so much a Guns N' Roses show as it was just like a Broadway spectacle. But, you know, I'm surprised that they couldn't glean one decent show from that tour and put it out as a live album. It's just sad because you know you would want to see something where they just had one live album and they said, here you go, not this chopped up hodgepodge of songs. But okay, whatever. Let's get into a Journey. Captured is the album right before Escape, and it's the last album with Greg Raleigh on keyboards. You know, Jonathan Cain would join the band, and they would make Escape, which is one of the greatest albums of all time. But this is a great show. If you want to hear some Steve Perry and Neil Schon and Ross Valerie and Steve Smith on drums, boom, this is it. And Greg, you know, he sings, you know, along with Mr. Perry. And they do a great list. You know, they got Where Were You, and Just the Same Way, and Line of Fire, Lights, you know, Wheel in the Sky, you know, Any Way You Want It. Any way you want it, that's the way you want it. You know, and it always reminds me of Caddyshack. Um, and at the end, they have like a studio track. It's called "The Party's Over." And apparently, I don't know, was that their nod saying like, bye, Greg, you're gone? I don't know. They also had Dixie Highway on here, which was not in any of their regular albums. But that's a great album. I remember just watching the live show that they had on MTV from the Escape tour, where they were playing big stadium. It was like, that was amazing too. So, you know, just definitely one of those great albums to get. Nirvana and Journey? Is this a metal show? All I'm saying is, look, this is Nirvana Unplugged in New York. If you haven't heard this, I'm not a huge like Nirvana fan. I kind of, you know, I could take them or leave them. I mean, they had some good songs, you know. I'm not like, oh, Kurt Cobain is God. Not really. I wasn't into grunge or any of that stuff, but this is a great show, you know, and it had, you know, he does that Bowie song, Man Who Sold the World, which is awesome. The Meat Puppets come out and they play like Lake of Fire, and they do like Penny Royalty and About a Girl and Come As You Are, and this is a good album, like, and it's live and they do it acoustic, and it's awesome, you know. Here's the Queensryche album I was talking about, and you're like asking yourself, Matt, why are you holding up the Queensryche EP? That only has 4 songs on it from their very first foray into recorded rock music. And I will tell you the reason why is because when they remastered this, they added a whole bunch of stuff to it. Not only did they add Prophecy, which, you know, was a song that supposedly was supposed to be on here, but they didn't record it until way later, like in the Rage for Order era. But not only that, they added on a live show from Tokyo, and it's from the Warning Tour, and it's back when Jeff still had a voice, and it's back when Chris was still in the band. And this has songs Night Rider, Prophecy, Deliverance, Child of Fire, Enforce, Blinded, The Lady Wore Black, Take Hold of the Flame, and Queen of the Reich. If you want a great live show of Queensryche, when Queensryche was Queensryche, I think I'm going to say Queensryche one more time, Queensryche, then yeah, definitely pick that up, because you definitely want to listen to that. Couple more albums that I want to cover that I don't have the cover to. One is Halford Live Insurrection. And 2001, Rob Halford with his band Halford recorded a show, and they did like old Priest songs, they did Halford songs, they did fight songs. There's like 2 Judas Priest songs that weren't even on any of the Judas Priest albums, and they did them. Like, one's Heart of a Lion, the other one is Prisoner of Your Eyes. Awesome. And then he even did, and I can't remember the song, but he did a copy of a song, or not a copy, but he did a song that he did with Pantera on some soundtrack. He actually did it live. But that, if you want all the cool Halford, I mean, Rob's voice is still on, and it's rocking and rolling, so that's a great album to listen to. The other two Judas Priest albums, and I don't know what I did with my Unleashing the East. I had it on the last show, but Unleashing the East, 1979. People say that album's doctored. I don't care. The addition to the 4 songs they added for the remaster make it a little bit more relevant, because it was recorded on the Hellbent for Leather tour. Rob Halford's amazing, and I've seen him live, and he can sing, so I don't know why. And Judas Priest is a pretty tight band. I mean, we've seen, you know, back in '83 they came out with the Screaming for Vengeance tour. I remember it was on VHS, and we used to watch that all the time, and dude, they were spot on. So Unleashing the East is amazing. It's got all their cool old stuff from the early albums, you know, up till Hellbent for Leather, which was 1979. You know, it had the Ripper and Victim of Changes, and it just had so many great songs on it. That album rocks. And then in '86, they recorded Priest Live. You've seen it. It's that like copper-colored album with the hands, and it just says Priest Live. For a lot of years, I didn't really listen to Priest, I kind of fell out of favor with them. And I didn't really listen to them for a while, but I went back and I started listening to the remastered stuff, and I totally got back into Priest, and I was like, oh my god, and I listened to that album, and it's a really good live album. It was recorded on the Fuel for Life tour, which we all know is the Turbo tour. It's like TurboTax, Turbo Tour. Um, But they do some great songs. The only thing is there's nothing from the 70s on there. Now the remastered version they did Rock Hard Ride Free, which is actually recorded on the Defenders tour, and then they actually did Hellbent for Leather, which was actually recorded on the same Turbo tour. But it's all newer Priest, and so like with the Scorpions, you got Tokyo Tapes and you got Worldwide Live. Why not take Unleashed in These and Priest Live? You can smash those together, and that's as far as Judas Priest needs to go with the live album, I think, at this time. AC/DC, If You Want Blood, You Got It. 1978. It was recorded in Australia on the Power Age tour. A great Bon Scott show. It had Riff Raff and Rock and Roll Damnation and Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be. Had Rocker. It ended with Rocker, from Dirty Deeds, which is cool. It's a great live show. It had a whole lot of Rosie on it. It just, the thing with me, it was only 52 minutes, so it seemed to me like super short, They did headlining tour in their home country, and they played for less than an hour. I think people would have been upset. So I think that show was a lot longer than what it was, and I don't know why they didn't come back and say, hey, let's put the whole show out. But that is a great snapshot of the Bon Scott years and when they were in their super prime. So definitely a good thing. I know what you're saying. You're saying, oh, is this on the Misses? Is this on the Misses? Because this is Speak of the Devil by Ozzy. Speak of the Devil by Ozzy came out in 1982. It was recorded in September of 1982. Ozzy was supposed to come out with a live album. He owed Jet Records a live album in his contract, I believe. And he didn't want to come out with, they had recorded with Randy Rhoads, but Randy's passing in March of that year led Ozzy to fight with the company and say, I don't want to put it out. He didn't want to put out a live album with Randy on it because he felt that it would tarnish Randy's image and his own image. He didn't want to be viewed as somebody who was cashing in on the death of Randy Rhoads. So he owed them a live album. He gave them a live album. They holed up in the Ritz in New York. They practiced with his touring band from the Diary, the last leg of the Diary of a Madman tour, with Rudy Sarzo on bass and Tommy Aldridge on drums and fill-in guitar player Brad Gillis from Night Ranger. And Ozzy will make sure that that he was a fill-in guitar player, because I don't think he really got along with Brad, or he didn't really like Brad, and I don't think anybody really liked Brad, but hey, I'm not gonna knock Brad. He played a mean Tony Iommi on this, so basically Ozzy came up with the idea, we think, or somebody, maybe Sharon, to do all Black Sabbath songs on a live album. Black Sabbath to that point had never come out with an official live album. They had come out with, in 1980, there was an album called Live at Last that was recorded on the, I want to say it was the Volume 4 tour, even though it had Killing Yourself to Live, which was from Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. But I think it was 1973. It was put out by their ex-manager, and so it was deemed a bootleg because the band had never signed off on it. And then years later, I guess they finally officially signed off on it after all the rigmarole and legal issues were finally solved, and now it's an official live album. But when I was a kid, it wasn't official, it was a bootleg. But so Sabbath had never come out with a live album, so Ozzy decided, hey, why not do all the Black Sabbath stuff? That way I can kill two birds with one stone. I can throw out my live version of Sabbath stuff. Everybody loves Sabbath, and that way I can keep the Randy stuff until I feel it's appropriate. So he came out with Speak of the Devil, which enraged the Sabbath camp. And so their retaliation was Live Evil, which is on my misses list. The reason why Speak of the Devil's not on my misses list is because they were tight and they played those songs very well, and it's Ozzy's material, so he owns it. So why not put it out? And the band, they sounded great, and they pulled it off. Now, Live Evil was on my Mrs. album, not because of the songs, because I love the Dio stuff. I mean, but do I want to listen to Ronnie sing like War Pigs? I'd rather listen to Ronnie sing Sign of the Southern Cross. Um, they did some of the Ozzy songs because, they were their songs too. Sabbath, they put, each member had 1/4 of the song credits through the whole cycle with the with the Ozzy stuff. So it was their stuff too. So they had three sides of it. Well, actually, by that time, Vinny Appice was in the band, so I had two sides of it. Um, but the problem is by that time, Ronnie and Mr. Iommi, they weren't getting along very well, so there was rumors and innuendos about Tony sneaking in and turning up the guitar and turning down the vocals, and Ronnie the same way, and it ended up destroying the Dio era Black Sabbath. Um, so, and the album when it came out, it sounded horrible. Oh my God, who's awake? I'll be back.